Welcome back to the Piping Pastor, Theology Talks. Today we'll be doing a theological response to the recent speech by Harrison Buckner. Well, this afternoon I am smoking in my Whitlock pipe. I've already wrapped and packed all my other pipes in preparation for the move. The moving company is actually handling all the packing for the most part, but I didn't want to trust them with all the precious bits. So we pre-pack a lot of our own stuff. So I've already packed all those. So I have a pipe I sent to Boswell, or I took to Boswell's to get a replacement stem for, and I haven't gotten that one back yet. I'll probably get it back next week. So I'll have two pipes to rotate between. But the Whitlock and then my other Admiral pipe will be the only ones you'll see for a little while anyway. And in it, I am smoking some Railroad Station by Boswell. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you to my recent subscribers. I've gotten quite a few recently, so I'm glad you all come on board, and thank you for subbing. It's always encouraging that there's a few more people out there who want to hear me ramble on as I do. And one new subscriber, who some of you, I think, or a lot of you, many probably, subscribe to his channel as well, Tim's School of Pipes. So he has two channels, one about fishing as well. But Tim's a rather learned gentleman when it comes to edge weapons. And I always appreciate finding a true expert in whatever field, so I can have a source for questions. Because, as an academic geek, I'm very particular about the source material I use. And there's a lot of people out there who claim to be experts in A, B, or C when really they're not. That probably doesn't surprise many of you. Internet is full of people like that. But Tim really knows what he's talking about, so I appreciate that. And I thought I could combine a Sharp Things video today with this theological response to a public speech given recently. So, and I mentioned this a while ago, but this is my daily carry. So this is the knife I have with me all the time, every day. So it's a very nice utility lock blade. And this was given to me as a gift by a friend that I went through some ministry training with. And he and I and several people actually went through this training. It's rather arduous, difficult, challenging training over several months. And through this training program, we, me, him, and another gentleman, I got to be rather close. We were pretty close theologically. I identified worldviews very closely together, and we supported and encouraged each other during the several months where we were away from our families and going through some pretty hard times. So at the end, he gifted us each with one of these knives to carry. And you see on this side of the blade, there we go, Proverbs 27:17. And that is the proverb which states, as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. And that is a verse I wanted to bring up today in response to the recent speech by Harrison Buckner. So if you're unfamiliar with that speech, by all means, you can Google it. It'd be really easy to find now. This kicker for the Chiefs gave a commencement address. And I believe it was a law school. Don't quote me on that. Check your source. But in any case, it was a commencement address. And he got into some rather gender-specific role-type stuff. Controversial, to say the least. And because I'm the only man in my house, it's myself, my wife, and I have 3 daughters. We have a male green cheek conure, but he's of no help in these situations. But when these things come out and people say these things and stuff comes up, I'm generally called upon to defend my gender, which in all honesty I don't really mind, because I've raised my wife and I have raised 3 very intelligent, strong-willed young women, very accomplished in their various different interests. And so when this stuff comes up, I want them to have an informed response. Right? I don't want them to troll through the internet and see who's saying about what. I want them to have an informed, intelligent discussion about these things that happen and these discussions that come up. We had one after the Barbie movie incident too. I can't remember. Some guy said something about, I don't know what was going on with that, but so the speech in the commencement address, he starts out by saying women have been lied to, and they've received the most diabolical lies, and that some of the women in the group are going to be thinking about promotions and financial success and so on and so forth. But he said, I venture to say most of you, or somewhere like some words to that effect, are just thinking about marriage, who they're going to get married to and have babies with, or whatever. And I think it was at law school. So first of all, know your audience, right? I don't know many women who go to law school just so they can immediately graduate, get married, have babies, and stay home. Maybe a few do, but I would venture to say most people would not go through the rigors of law school to not practice law. But beyond that, he gives his own personal experience about his wife, who it sounds as if she's a trad wife. And he's like, that's her vocation, that's her calling. And he kind of intimates that that's the general calling for women, essentially to be trad wives. And then he also kind of ties in his faith, which I'm not entirely sure what brand of Christianity he is, but I'm pretty sure he's a Christian. He could be a Mormon, Seventh-day Adventist. He could be Methodist, Catholic. I have no way of knowing, actually. It's probably something you can Google. I'm just not that interested. I know he's in some form of Christianity, I believe, something in the Abrahamic faith traditions. In any case, he likens it because he says his wife converts to the faith. So he likens it to a faith decision, right? Kind of again suggesting that this is a religious thing. It's not just a religious thing, but it's a God ordained thing, and all these kind of suggestions that come along with this. And again, they're intimations, they're soft suggestions, basically saying that a woman should stay home, have babies, bake bread, and that kind of stuff, right? And that's their natural calling, to support the men in the pursuit of their vocation. Now, again, he doesn't come out and say this, so we want to offer him a little bit of grace, but we also don't want to put blinders on and say, oh, no, he didn't say it. He didn't specifically say it, so he didn't mean it. Okay. Well, if he didn't at least mean it in some way, that wouldn't have come up at all right? So I'm all about giving people the benefit of the doubt, but I also, I don't try to put blinders on and plug my ears to reality, right? People say things what they say, and I try to listen, In any case, when the speech comes out, of course, the result is a lot of women get upset. Suggesting the whole patriarchal, argument, right? And again, because he kind of ties this to his faith, a lot of people look at the Bible and try to point out things that support him in this. Of course, there's several verses in Paul and so on and so forth. It's not where I'm going with that today. Where I'm going to go with that today is from here, not from the knife, from the Proverbs. As iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. It does not say, as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens a woman. Why? Because we are called to encourage each other. We are called to support each other. We're called to challenge each other. We're called to hold each other accountable and call each other out, But it's far easier, far more impactful to do that if you have a shared lived experience with that other person. If I have a shared experience with another man, as men, it's a lot easier to me to come put my arm around them and say, hey, you're messing up, or hey, you're off direction, or hey, you're doing great, keep going, right? Because we can identify with each other. There's something there, even if we have different ethnicities, different socioeconomic backgrounds. We could have we could be from different countries. We could have any number of differences, right? We still have the shared lived experiences of being men. And so there's something there that it kind of bonds us together, right? By our gender. And it's the widest pattern, right? If we're talking about like turkey shoots, right? Laying out a wide pattern, trying to get that BB in the center. So by the widest pattern we can think of, one man sharpens another. I can go to another man, and there's that instant connection of the fact that we have at least that one thing in common, that we have the shared lived experience as men. It puts me in a better position to mentor, coach, lead, guide, and direct that person, right? Doesn't mean that I can't lead, coach, guide, and direct a woman. In point of fact, I have 3 that I've been doing that for years, right? It doesn't mean that a woman can't be a pastor, a woman can't be a CEO. It doesn't mean that, men and women can't work for each other in different capacities, right? But if we really want to try to form that connection, to really try to guide someone, it's a lot easier if you start from at least some kind of common ground that is really central, right? I might be able to, connect with somebody because we're both, from Indiana. I just got a video about Hoosier Marshall, so I got to think about that, right? So there's that connection, right? But that's not as tenuous as it is as something integral to me as a human being, right? Being from Indiana means a few things. It means I like basketball and I know how to play euchre really well, and I think fried catfish is great, right? But those are not as core to me as it is being a man, right? That's really central to my identity. So I'd be more, I'd be able to relate better to a man from, Zimbabwe than a woman from Indiana, right? We would have the same, the woman and I would have the same experience as being Hoosiers, right? But we wouldn't have that same core identity experience of gender, right? Because her growing up as a woman in Indiana would be vastly different than me growing up as a man in Indiana, right? Whereas the gender thing, there's a lot more structures built around that. And so when we think about guiding, leading, directing, coaching, and so on and so forth, individuals like that, it's far easier when we have more things that combine us in the core of our identity, right? Like in the core, like in our faith and of who we really, really are, in the center of ourselves, right? So, him offering this speech, basically saying, that, what women should do, and he's talking specifically about their gender, right? He's not talking about graduates in general, right? If he was just talking about graduates in general, law school graduates in general, people in the professional community in general, that's fine. Knock yourself out, do whatever, right? But when you start getting into gendered specific, you got to stay in your lane. If you want to talk to one gender, cool. Talk to the men. You're a man. You have no lived experience as a woman. You could have been raised by women, raised around women. Doesn't make a difference. I was. I was raised by a single mother, and I had all older sisters, right? I just mentioned I live in a house of all women. That still does not give me the lived experience of a woman. It does not place me in the best position to lead, guide, coach, direct, and mentor a woman. A woman is in a much better position to do that because she's had that experience. She has lived as a woman. She knows what it is to be a woman, right? And I don't. He doesn't, right? And jumping over into that lane, you're offering guidance and direction from a place where you're not really informed. And when we look at the biblical examples, right, of keep teaching, coaching, guiding, directing, talking about all the stuff in Paul that people all usually bring up in the Pauline literature, about the place of women in leadership and so on and so forth. That's a different discussion. Actually, I did a video on that a while ago about women leaders in the church. So you can go back and check the library if you want to skim through and try to find that. But when it comes to individually teaching, coaching, guiding, directing, and leading, throughout the Old Testament and New Testament, the consistent teaching thread is that women coach, lead, guide, direct women, and men coach, lead, and guide, direct men. In a larger capacity as church leaders and stuff like that, that's a different discussion, right? And as I said, I've covered that, so I'm not going to belabor that point. But when it comes to one-on-one coaching, leading, guiding, and like doing the kind of stuff that he was attempting to do in that speech, stay in your lane. Speak to the people you have a shared lived experience with, or at least a closer lived experience with. And let the right iron sharpen the right iron. Well, it's kind of a long one. So I'm going to leave it for there. Turn my attention back to my pipe here. Hope you have a lovely week. As always, happy reading.